Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Nice to see you all. I hope everyone had a great summer. Okay, I'm just gonna give people just one more minute. Okay, we could go ahead and get started, but welcome back, everyone. It's so good to see everyone's faces again, and I hope everyone had a really nice Labor Day weekend most recently, but also hopefully some fun plans over the summer as well. We are on now semester 2, which is very exciting, and time is flying this year. And we have two really great speakers with us today to talk about cycle menu development as well as plant forward recipes. Um, as usual, if everyone wants to just put their name and their district in the chat so our speakers can see where everyone's coming from, that'd be great. But otherwise, I'm going to get started by passing it over to Melissa. If you just want to quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll do the same with Amanda. And then we'll get started with the presentation. So, Melissa, I'll pass it to you.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Manning, and I am a registered dietitian. I started out early in my career working for the California Department of Education Nutrition Services, wearing those auditor glasses, and I audited menus. I love regulation and I love special diets and menu planning, standardizing scratch recipes, and I have about currently about 35 districts in California that I help them with their menus and compliance, menu related compliance. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Amanda. I'll pass it to you next.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm Amanda Hickson. I'm the California Climate Friendly School Food Program Manager with Friends of the Earth. And I actually am realizing I'm recognizing some of your names. So that's exciting. I wasn't quite sure who the audience was on this call. So some of you I think I've met before, and I'm happy to be here with you today.
Thank you, Amanda. That's great to hear as well. Well, Melissa, I'm going to pass it over to you. I know you'll be talking to us about menu cycles and how they work. So feel free to just get started. Thank you.
All right. And I have a little PowerPoint and the slides and a handout I just sent over by email. So those will be passed to you after the presentation today. I'm going to go ahead and get this presenter screen on and share my screen. Share. And I love questions and comments. So please do send any questions, comments, or jump in. I don't know what your normal protocol is, but I'm more than happy to answer anything that comes up for you. So this is my presentation on cycle menus. Welcome back. And that was just me. I love administrative reviews. I'm that odd person. I do a lot of them, but it's a little bit more comfy after you've been on the other side. So to start out, cycle menus. First of all, we're going to talk about what is a cycle menu, what are the benefits of a cycle menu, how do we get started with cycle menus, and some troubleshooting tips. Let me see. I can't see anyone as I present. I'm going to try and get this screen to go so I can see all of you in case. And please just jump in if anyone has a hand raised or whatever, and I don't see you for any reason. You can unmute and stuff like that. Okay, so what is a cycle menu? A cycle menu is a menu that's repeated over a specific period of time. Now, that amount of time is defined by who? By you, by your district. And the way that it repeats is also pretty flexible, but it does definitively repeat over a definitive amount of time. So we're going to talk about different varieties of cycle menus. First of all, I was curious if you can either put in the chat or raise your hand. Does your district use cycle menus? Does everybody here use cycle menus? Does anyone not use cycle menus? So you're familiar. I see nodding heads. Um, okay. So you're a little, yeah, every 2 months. All right. That's a long one. I think the most common cycle menu that I see is either shortest length, a 1 week, and longest length might be the 2 months cycle menu. Actually, an 8 week cycle menu is rather long. The most common cycle menu length that I see over everything is a 4 week for elementary. High school would be a 1 or 2 week. And for middle school, it just depends on if we're more mirroring that elementary school or more mirroring the high school with a lot of options and a shorter cycle. So the more menu entrees you have, the shorter the cycle. So for elementary, it might look like a 4, a 5, a 6 week cycle typically, but most often 4. And that would be usually only 1 or 2, sometimes a third option a day. So not that many options for entrees. And then for the secondary schools, the most common is a 1 or 2 week cycle. And so thank you, Michelle, for jumping in there. I see your comment about going with a 2 week cycle menu for those secondary students. So the shorter, more options probably, right? And yeah, and then the longer, less options for the elementary. So plenty of variety either way. And then one thing to consider if you're creating a cycle menu and trying to decide like how long do I want my cycle menu to go? I honestly recommend for most clients, especially starting out, to not go longer than 4 weeks. There are a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is about forecasting and having your inventory in your freezers, having freezer space. That when we are forecasting how much to purchase, how many meals to make, then the rule of thumb is to base your numbers on the last 3 times that cycle menu happened. So we look back. If you have a 4 week cycle, we would look back to last month, the month before, and the month before that. So let's pretend we had a 4 week cycle menu. How long would it take for me to get to 3 times in the cycle for accurate forecasting? It's going to take me 3 months before I'm even able to get my three time repetition. So if we've got an 8 week, multiply that by 3, that is now going to be 24 weeks until I get my forecasting numbers to be like that goal of 3 times. And if you have a 1 week cycle, you're going to have your forecasting numbers within your first month after the 3 weeks have passed. 3 1 week menus have passed. So that's just something to consider. I don't necessarily honestly believe that having the longer cycle is quote better. It just really depends on the school district and your staff and ordering and things like that. Okay, so as we had started to introduce, we have different ways of doing a cycle menu. We have daily items with an entree of the day is one way of doing it. Like at my elementary school, I have a daily sun butter and jelly sandwich because we want to have our vegan option. And then I also have a rotating meat or vegetarian based entree that is just a different entree every single day for 4 weeks. But so we've really got 2 entrees because one is always the sandwich, and then the other one is my hot item that is my daily entree of the day. So that is one way to do a cycle menu. A second way to do a cycle menu is to do weekly items. So for example, I might do my daily item, entree of the day, hot item, and then I'm going to do on week 1 a chicken Caesar salad with a roll and a chickpea Caesar salad with a roll. And so I really got 3 entrees that day. One, but like, and then for my whole week, I'm going to have that salad, those two salads. And if I don't sell all of them, that's okay, because then I can put them back out the next day. They're cold, they don't have to be reheated. So long as that lettuce stays green and crisp, we're doing good. And then another way to do a cycle menu is a monthly items with an entree of the day. So sometimes, like with that sun butter and jelly sandwich on all month, that would be a monthly item, and then a rotating out item of the day. There's so many ways to do a cycle menu, and you can really add a lot of extra entrees on when you start thinking about those items that are the most popular that we want to have on daily or weekly, all the time, and then my rotating out special of the day for a lot of variety. Okay, so where do we begin? That is the first question I get with my school districts that are just really starting out. And there are a lot of school districts actually that are just starting out on the National School Lunch Program. Some of them were vended by Sodexo, and some of them are new charter schools or people that just have moved over to the National School Lunch Program for one reason or another. And they just don't know where to start. So I'll ask them first, well, I mean, sometimes they've done menus, but they've never done a cycle. So I say, well, let's look at your last like couple of months of menus, and then we'll try and figure out how often we want to structure the repeating of the cycle. So do we want a 2-week cycle at those secondary schools? Do we want a 4-week cycle at elementary? The one thing that I don't recommend is doing a 3-week cycle with a 4-week cycle, like as in a 3-week breakfast with a 4-week lunch. Nobody can keep track of what week in the cycle we're in because 3 weeks and 4 weeks repeats off, like it's a little disjointed. It's okay to do a 2-week cycle with a 4-week cycle because they always fit evenly with each other. But I really don't recommend doing like a 3 with a 5 or a 3 with a 4. So we gather up those last couple of months of menus, we decide on our cycle length, and we just start with maybe like 4 weeks. What did we do for the last 4 weeks? And repeat that and look at the next month and say, okay, well, if I just repeated those last 4 weeks to this next 4 weeks, what changes would I want to make? What did I learn from the last 4 weeks that I don't want to do again? And then I start to make little tweaks and adjustments. And so it's kind of like a living cycle. I really don't have a lot of schools that do a set in stone cycle that never changes. Um, so there's a lot of factors to consider in your cycle menus. We got that forecasting, all your ingredients that you've got to source. Inputting all of this into the software is another factor of having a really robust menu. That's a ton of standardization to do. So I always recommend to start simpler and then build on that. Training staff so that everybody does the same menu across all the schools and the same recipe twice. Those are all challenges. Okay, so here's a sample cycle menu, and this is actually in the lunchbox under menu development. So I wanted to ask, like, as you look at this screen, this is really like a helpful, I love this menu. What do you see here? What do you notice that this menu might not have or have, how it's structured? So on the Monday, we have pizza, pepperoni pizza, cheese pizza, and a natural meatball sub. On Tuesdays, a hot dog, a quesadilla, and sliders. So my question is, okay, like, what would else be on the serving line that we are not saying here? Does anyone notice what's not here that would also be on the serving line other than there are 3 entrees? We've got fruit, vegetable. Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. Fruit, vegetable, milk. So when building your cycle menu, we really do those fruits and vegetables secondary. First, focus just on your entrees. And once you've got a nice balance of flavor, of hot, of cold, of different ethnic backgrounds, foods, then we start to build in our fruit and vegetable side. So this also can really help with like not getting overwhelmed because it can be really overwhelming to do this kind of project. Just only start with the entrees first is what I recommend, and then start building in those other things in our veggie subgroups. Another thing that I noticed they did here is there is a vegetarian entree option each day. So they've got a structure here where there's a main meat-based item first, and then a vegetarian option next. And then they've got a third option. So oftentimes that third option would be something like a cold sandwich or salad that I see. And then when making our vegetarian option, I have a handy dandy thing for you today that I had kind of started to create. And then I think the
Oh,
last chef fan group, yes. Oh, no, somebody was just off. Okay. The last
well,
Chef Band group had some questions and I fine-tuned a little handout to help out. If any of you are
oh,
looking to um, move like some of your entrees, you want to do a vegan or vegetarian option that is not meat-based, but is really similar, like that spaghetti. Let's take a look at that. Oops. That took me right out of the cycle. Let's see if it'll move on. No, it just keeps taking me to the website. Let's go to that. Okay, so here is the handy dandy handout that was inspired by y'all. I had done a bunch of these options, but not all of them. So now what we have here is, let's say I've got my spaghetti and meat sauce, and I want to do an equivalent that's vegetarian or vegan. How do I do that? Well, I could use 2 ounces equivalent of beef, but an equivalent amount in cheese, if I wanted to use cheese, would be half of a cup of, say, mozzarella. I could do that. I could also maybe, like, if it would translate into, say, beans, chickpeas or something, or white beans, then you could do a half cup of white beans, and that also would be 2 ounce equivalent meat. So everything in this section interchanges equally with the 2 ounce equivalent meat amount. So that'll be in a handout for you. And hopefully that helps. If you want to go tofu even, you can do that. Yep. So I want to save space here for Amanda, but that's it for my presentation on cycle menus. Thank you, everyone.
thank you, Melissa. Any questions for Melissa today? And we'll be sure to share out her slides, of course, afterwards as well. And again, if you have any questions, you could also put them in the chat as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, I can answer them if you want to keep moving along.
Okay, well, if anyone has a question, feel free to throw it in the chat. But otherwise, Amanda, I'm going to pass it over to you, and you will be talking about climate-friendly meals. So,
Great, thank you. Okay, hello everyone. Happy to be here today talking about climate-friendly plant-based strategies for success in your school meal programs. I did see that this video was in your homework, but it's only a minute. So just in case, for those of you that didn't watch it, we're going to watch it again. And I'm hoping that the sound will share.
What can you do to fight climate change at school? The answer might surprise you. The food surge in schools has a huge climate impact, and having more plant-based options can make a big difference. Food production is driving more than 1/3 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and production of animal foods has the biggest agricultural impact on our climate. Beef alone has 15 to 100 times the carbon footprint of beans and lentils. Plus, most animal agriculture operations pollute the air and water in local communities, especially communities of color. With billions of meals served in US schools every year, school food can be a powerful tool for fighting climate change. Having more plant-based options at school is also an important part of building racial equity and serving culturally relevant foods. Most people of color cannot digest lactose, and many traditional diets around the world are plant-based. Students who don't or can't eat animal products because of their health, culture, religion, or personal beliefs should have the right to a healthy plant-based meal at school. Take action now. Your voice and your choices matter. Ask for more plant-based options in your cafeteria and help spread the word today. What can you do to fight climate?
Sorry, let me get back on my presentation here. All right. So climate friendly, what is climate friendly? What does climate friendly school food mean? It has a low carbon and water footprint. It's plant-based and plant forward, which we'll talk about a little later. It's produced using organic farming practices that sequester carbon in the soil. And it does not end up in the landfill. So we think about packaging, distribution, and food waste with our climate-friendly food definition. Why do we talk about climate-friendly food? Why is this something that's important? Why is it something we should care about? The reason for that is because food is a major driver of climate change. As you can see from here, about a quarter of the climate impacts is coming from agriculture. And I wanted to share a little story. When I was in college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my future, I got into the food system because I thought, well, food is the way that you have an impact globally because everyone has to eat worldwide, every single person, it touches all of us. And so it does have a huge effect when you're focusing on shifts that you can do with food, especially in school food. Actually, the livestock sector has more emissions than the exhaust from all the vehicles in the whole world currently. And as you can see from this chart, not all foods' climate impact are created equal. Beef down at the bottom, the emissions from a pound of beef are 15 to 100 times that of beans and lentils and other plant-based options. Does anyone know why? And I can't really see you all. So if anyone wants to put a guess out there, just come off mute. Why is beef, why does beef have such a bigger emission impact than other plant-based proteins?
Is it because of the methane?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So the methane in cow burps and farts is methane is a lot more potent greenhouse gas than carbon. And and it's not just beef, sheep, other ruminants have the same they emit a lot of methane. So that is exactly it. And with CAFO's concentrated animal feeding operations, where a lot of our meat comes from, especially beef, those especially have a lot of emissions and have a big climate impact and use a lot of water. this was here's another little story from when I was a lot younger. And when I was in college, I remember learning about trophic levels in biology and the concept that as you go up one level in a trophic level, it takes 10 times the amount of energy. So essentially, if you're eating an animal that eats plants rather than eating the plants themselves, it takes 10 times the amount of energy to get a pound of the meat versus a pound of the plants. And I remember learning that in biology and being like, wow, that's really, really interesting. So we could essentially feed 10 times the amount of people on plants as on meat. School food makes a huge difference. As we were talking about, food impacts everyone. Just in California, the schools supply 540 million school lunches every year to nearly 6 million students. Nearly 30 million kids in the US eat lunch through the National School Lunch Program every day, and 15 million eat breakfast nationally. There's also about 70% rely on free and reduced price meals for daily nutrition needs, and small shifts equate to big environmental and health differences. This is an example that if all school districts in California swapped out a beef burger for a black bean burger just once a month on the menu, just one day a month, it would be the equivalent of taking 22,000 cars off the road for a year, planting 1.7 million tree seedlings that grew for 18 years, or 26,000 residential solar systems running for a year. So it can have a really big impact just by doing a tiny shift. And while we're talking about black bean burgers, I'm just going to put a plug in there. I don't know if most of you saw or noticed, but black bean burgers is a new item on the USDA commodities list. I don't think you call them commodities anymore, but it's something that you can actually get through your entitlement USDA commodities. So we'd really love for more schools to be getting some black bean burgers with their orders. Student preference and racial equities. So plant-based options can help students meet their dietary, religious, health, or cultural needs. The National Institutes of Health estimate that 95% of Asian Americans, 60 to 80% of African Americans, 80 to 100% of American Indians, and 50 to 80% of Hispanic people are unable to process lactose. The majority of the global population can't process lactose. So this is a huge argument for having plant-based milks in your cafeteria as an option so that students are able to access a milk that they can actually drink. And providing healthy plant-forward school food is a vital tool for mitigating racial health disparities and also just making sure that all kids can be nourished, that all kids can come to the cafeteria and find food that's going to fill them up and nourish them, and that they'll be able to find things to eat. Plant-based versus plant-forward. I think there's lots of different terminology out there, and I know it's easy to get confused about what exactly it's talking about with the different terms. Plant-based is another word for plant-based that you might be more familiar with is vegan. Plant-based is food that does not contain any animal products. It's derived solely from plants, fruits, vegetables, pulses like beans, legumes, grains. That's what plant-based is. Plant-forward is, in other words, vegetarian, or it has a lot more plants in it. For example, the mushroom and beef blended burger patty, that's not vegetarian, but it has half the amount of meat as a normal hamburger. And so with plant forward, the meat or poultry or dairy is really a condiment. It's a side, it's on the side, or there's a small amount. For example, you can really decrease the amount of meat that you're using if you use a meat that has a strong flavor, like using a little bit of bacon will decrease the amount of meat that you're using in the dish, but it has the flavor is going to go far with dishes. I also want to talk about organic. So climate friendly school food, one part of that is plant-based and getting more plant-based on the menu. The other is our organic work, and which we're really excited about and happy to be working with a lot of school districts throughout California to help them source more organic produce and organic meat and organic dairy and organic grains in their school meals. This is an example from Encinitas USD with our small family farm, Lopes Family Farm. They are multi-generational. They've been farming rice for over 100 years. And recently, about 20 years ago, they converted to organic. And now, about 5 years ago, they started to adopt a method called duck rice farming, which is really, really cool. It's a traditional Japanese method of growing rice where you incorporate the ducks with the rice, and the ducks go out and they eat the weeds and they fertilize the rice, and then the rice grows up beautifully and the rice is harvested and the ducks are harvested. So we've been working with Lopes Family Farm and connecting them with the schools that are part of our organic cohort in California to source their Calrose brown rice for their menus. And as you can see from the quote at the top, it is really popular with students, and the school districts that have been serving the brown rice from Lowe's Family Farm have found that the students just love the rice. It tastes so good, and it's helping with eliminating food waste because the kids are actually eating all of the rice. And then I also wanted to share about our organic work through DoD Fresh with your USDA entitlement dollars. And I imagine you're all maybe participating in DoD Fresh. When we started working on helping to advocate for organic options in DoD Fresh, there were no organic options that were available. But now since 2021, over $5.7 million have been spent on organic produce through DoD Fresh, which is awesome. Over 2.7 million pounds of organic have been purchased, and over 444 districts, so nearly half of the districts in California, have purchased organic through DoD Fresh. So this is a really, really awesome way to be supporting the organic farmers and local organic farmers. The prime vendor, Valley Produce in Southern California, we're working with them to connect with farmers at Alba, which is a farmer incubator nonprofit outside of Salinas. So there's some really exciting work going on here, and happy to talk to any of you more about this. Here are just some examples of some healthy climate friendly meals versus some that are less climate friendly. On the left, there's a list of items that are plant-based and that have a lot of flavor and give a lot of variety. And then on the right, are items that are more often found on menus, but are not as climate friendly as some other recipes and meals that could be offered. Some of the barriers and challenges of offering more plant-based on your menu. The first one that I've really found is that does the person in charge care? Is it important to the person in charge? So I found that if the person in charge is committed and cares about it, then there's no barrier too big. There's no challenge too big. The person will overcome that. But if the person doesn't really care, then they won't be interested in making it happen. And then there's also getting staff buy-in. We know that that's a big challenge as well. A lot of the recipes, plant-based recipes that we promote take more scratch cooking, more kitchen infrastructure, and some staff just don't have the training that they need to be able to do that. Cost is also a factor. Sometimes, depending on what plant-based protein you're looking at, it can cost more sometimes. And then procurement, actually sourcing. We have a whole list of plant-based vendors that provide plant-based, non-GMO, plant-based options that can be sourced. And then student acceptance as well. I've been hearing from a lot of districts that they're getting more and more demand from students for more plant-based vegan options. And but not all students are going to be excited if the Meatless Monday is announced, for example. So these are some of the barriers, and we do work on helping to support districts in overcoming all of these barriers. Just some examples of some amazing meals, plant-based meals that different school districts in California are offering. And I'm very excited that we have now this K through 12 plant-based recipe resource available. It's online. I can, when I stop sharing, I can put this in the chat. But there's over 30 recipes, just amazing, delicious recipes that are student approved. They all came from school nutrition directors in California. So these are recipes that are actually being made in school cafeterias and being served to students. And so I encourage you all to take a look. And there's different levels. Some are really easy, a level 1, and they can get more complex if you have scratch cooking abilities in your kitchens. And then there's also some great recipes, additional recipes available through Meatless Monday. And I can put this link in the chat as well. We have a lot of different marketing materials. This helps a lot with the student acceptance. If there's marketing materials to promote it, taste testing is a great way to get students on board with plant-based options that they may not be familiar with. You give them a taste and and it's delicious, and then they're going to want that for lunch. And just a couple of examples of student engagement strategies. There was an art competition at Oxnard, social media graphics, prizes, banners in the cafeteria. There's a lot of different ways that you can engage the students with this. And this is just a picture of all of the support folks from our team. And our website, the climatefriendlyschoolfood.org, you can access all of our different resources from this website. You can register for our newsletter, and there's resources for those marketing materials, a list of plant-based vendors, organic vendors throughout California, curriculum. There's lots of different resources here. So please check it out. And if you have any questions or want some one-on-one technical support with anything, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Amanda. And Amanda, if you wouldn't mind also sharing those slides with me after this call so I could send them out tomorrow. I think a lot of those links will be really helpful, but appreciate any questions for Amanda. If no one has a question, I have a question. And then if anyone else has a question, feel free to raise your hand as well. This is a question for the apprentices. Do any of y'all have any examples of any plant-based meals that have been really successful in your districts? Anyone?
Patience has done like a vegetarian lasagna that's been really good and popular with the kids.
Sounds good. Let's just look. Tiffany said tofu banh mi with marinated carrots. That sounds delicious as well. I love banh mi's. They're so good. Anyone else want to share? Ooh, yum. We make the dough. Delicious. That sounds so good. I'll have to come try that someday. Anyone else? Okay, if there's no more questions or anyone who wants to share, I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. We got stuffed bell peppers and pizza pinwheels. And Caroline said we do chickpea, spinach, and coconut curry. The kids love that. Also sounds delicious. Laura, sushi bowl with edamame and some plant-based wings as well. Yum. Well, thank you all for sharing. Appreciate it. Um, and looks like there is a question in the chat from Jamie. What is a good dish to start with? We don't have plant-based meals.
That's a great question, Jamie. Do you have do you have the capacity to do scratch cooked, or you're doing speed scratch, or are you doing heat and serve? That would help me to know to give recommendation.
We currently are doing scratch and speed scratch in our district. So we were working out of a small kitchen right now, but we will be getting a central kitchen starting in December.
Fabulous. Oh, that's great. So there's definitely some pasta items, some plant-based pasta dishes that are pretty simple, good to start with. Most kids really like pasta, it's familiar to them. And we have some, I am going to share the recipe resource. You can look through there. There's the recipes are a level 1 to a level 3. And so I think starting with level 1 ones, and that are more familiar, that well, and it also just depends on your um the demographic of your students, because there could be, if you have a high demographic of students that would recognize like a um, the banh mi, for example, if that is a familiar cultural dish to them, then that could be something that would be great to start with. So you can look through our recipe resource as well and see which foods would be most familiar to the majority of your students that are getting lunch. And I would say to start with one of those. And if you're able to try to do some samples, that is a really great way to get students excited about a new menu item.
I've got a few. Amanda, I love what you do. I'm so excited. I'll be on the lookout for that for sure. Some of the ones that are super popular with some of my schools are like a 3-bean chili with tortilla chips. And that has the added aspect of being also oftentimes allergen friendly. And so it's super, super inclusive. And then hummus wrap, or like a hummus picnic box. You could call it a bistro box where students can dip. Again, you can use tortilla chips or like wheat crackers and some fresh grapes and some flavor with that. So the hummus is a direction that people go in as well. Some schools are able to pass by like a 3-bean salad even and do a soup and salad mix. Or there are also, if you want to do even more shelf stable, there's some great bean dips that are out there, like a refried bean dip with taco seasoning in it and fresh onions. There's also a shelf stable variety of that. There are some roasted uh, fava beans and garbanzo beans that National or Zzz's Foods makes. And then there's a really good pea protein, I believe, based like crumble marinara sauce by Red Gold. Has no additives, a super clean label. So those are a few things that popped into my head. Ooh, cauliflower mac, yum.
Yeah, I'm
So
loving all
great
the
ideas.
examples in the chat. Okay, well, anyone else have any final questions for Amanda? Okay, and it looks like Kelly also said a vegan Alfredo. Sounds like we're doing a lot of great recipes in the chat, so that's good to see. Okay, well, there's no more questions. Amanda and Melissa, thank you all both so much for presenting. Amanda, if you could just send me your presentation as well, that'd be great. But otherwise, we will let you all go. And apprentices, if you could just stay on for some housekeeping. But thank you both and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Okay, we just have a few housekeeping items. I think most of you should know this as I know I had sent an email about this a few weeks ago. But not Melissa. Juliana is currently on leave through the end of this week. She will be back starting next week, so you'll see her on our next call. But we do have a new cohort of apprentices starting this fall, which is very exciting. But because we are increasing in apprentices, I will be you all's point of contact from this point forth. So if you have any questions, feel free to direct them to me. And I will be the person who will serve as your point of contact. We also created a new general apprentice email. I'll drop it in the chat for everyone. And this is monitored by myself and then Juliana when she'll be back as well. So you could also reach out to this email if you have a question as well, in case I'm out of office or am not able to get to it right away. Finally, I also am implementing a new Calendly link. I'm dropping that in the chat as well, and I'll send this in the follow-up. But if anyone ever needs to schedule time with me, feel free to use this link that I just dropped in the chat to schedule a quick meeting with me. It doesn't matter what you want to chat with. You'll see a bunch of times available on through this link of when I'm available. It's linked to my calendar. So you could schedule a time with me, and if you need to chat and none of those times work, you could also just email me. You'll also find this link on Moodle in that top information section if you need to refer back to it as well. Um, my calendar tends to get filled up pretty quickly, so if you're not seeing anything that's available, just feel free to email me and I can see what else I have open as well. Any questions on the new point of contact and contacting me or our new apprenticeship email? Okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to being you all's point of contact. But again, Juliana will be back and you'll see her next call. So she'll still be around. Okay, next couple things is I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but just for some of you all who started back up doing apprenticeship program hours this week, just a reminder, their first time sheet is due today. So if you could get your time submitted. And then finally, just a reminder of the next virtual learning session, which will be in a few weeks on September 17th. And just be sure to do your virtual learning session reflection assignment as well. All right, any final questions for me? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. It's great to see you all again. And again, I'll see you in a few weeks. If you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. But thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening.